Hi guys, and welcome to my channel, Wrestling with Books, where today we're doing a bit of an unconventional reading wrap-up. Why is it unconventional? Because, you know, I'm in the car. I'm in the car. But I thought, you know, let's make use. Let's make use of our time, right? Let's do it. Hopefully the lighting is with us and we can just talk books. So, you know, I wish I lived in a world where I had a big bookshelf to talk in front of. Why is that the insecurity of me, of myself as a booktuber? I don't know, but it is. But, you know, I don't have a bookshelf. So I do, but it's small and there's not great lighting. And I thought, well, since I don't have a shelf anyway, I can just bring the camera wherever I go. I do want to show you, I decided to treat myself because I become obsessed with the Starbucks holiday cups. No good reason for that, right? There's no good reason. But I said, you know, maybe I'll spend less on Starbucks if I just buy my own holiday cups. So I got these Ray Dunn Happy Thanksgiving travel cups, even though like I really don't travel. I'm traveling now, but you know, traveling, going to Kohl's and sitting in the parking lot is traveling. But look, they got these little gnomes and it's adorable. It has a good lid. I made sure, I don't like the ones where you gotta like fold over. So this is great. So I'm gonna take a sip. And now, since we spoke last, I have 8 books to tell you about. 8 books I finished since we spoke last. And let's get started. Also having the worst case of allergy eye. By allergy eye, what I mean is that my eye waters. So, anyway, the first book I read since our last wrap-up was Neon Gods by Katie Robert. This was my first Katie Robert book. I hear a lot about her in the channel Riley Marie. I love Riley's channel. She reads a lot of romance novels, and since this one is a retelling, a modern retelling of Hades and Persephone, I thought it would be fun. So I love the way that Katie Robert takes mythology and puts it into a modern world. So the gods kind of, it's almost like they have roles. There is a different person who will be promoted to be Zeus and to be, you know, Hera and all of these things, and Hades, etc. And it is within their lineage most often. And they are kind of like socialites and celebrities in their world. So this tells the story of Persephone, and she has been selected to be the next Hera and marry Zeus. She does not want to do that, so she ends up running away and falling into Hades' arms, so to speak, and his world. And as they get to know each other, maybe things are not as black and white, cut and dry, or per their arrangement as they think it's going to be. I really enjoyed this book. I would continue the series. I thought it was fun to see these just new takes and interpretations on old stories and myths that we all love. I really enjoyed the Hades character quite a bit. I liked Persephone as our kind of main person. And also what I liked about this book, I mean, it did have a lot of steamy scenes, and, you know, you go into it knowing that, and it's fun. I really enjoyed this book. I'd probably give it 4 stars if I were to rank it. Book, it gets into a lot of themes of discovering who you are, embracing who you are, being okay with who you are, maybe branching out from your family, a lot of things like that. So if you're kind of looking for a journey in that aspect, then I think this would be a great book to add to your list. The next book I read was Crash Site by Rachel Grant, and I had gotten this book from NetGalley, and on NetGalley it did not have any indication that there was a book before it, but I learned when I finished the book that there is. I was intrigued to read this book because it says it's the story of Fiona Carver, who's an archaeologist, and she's being sent to Ruby Island to film this documentary. So it sounded like things that really would intrigue me. And then when I read it, I start reading it, and Fiona gets to this island, and this guy Dean is coming, and she's upset that Dean is coming because they have this history on Chicxulub. So I'm thinking they're leading up to like a big reveal of what this history is, and then that never happens because evidently I should have already known about the history from book 1. So we have a love triangle between Fiona, Dean, who is like a nature photographer, and Jude, who is the person who owns this island. And in the second half of the book is when it starts to go forward, as you realize that this island could be a front for other things. But I would not read this book without going into Fiona Carver 1 by Rachel Grant. I'm not sure of the title. It was really I wanted to like it because of the archaeology and the island and whatnot, but I didn't. But I wonder if you had gone in reading the first one, things could have been different. All right, my husband is continuing his shopping, so I'm continuing my vlogging, and my eyes are still get those allergy tears. I mean, what goes on? So the next book I read was Angels and Demons by Dan Brown. This is the first Robert Langdon book. Robert Langdon is known for the Da Vinci Code, and of course as being portrayed by Tom Hanks in the movies. And what happens in this book is this is the first time we meet Robert Langdon, and the first time he's on kind of one of these chases, and he is a Harvard symbologist. He teaches at Harvard, he attended Harvard, and he is brought in because a physicist has been murdered and an ancient symbol is branded on this man's body. So Robert is brought in, and then it ends up becoming this whole chase and puzzle throughout. And I say it's a chase and a puzzle because each next step they get to, there's something else for Robert to figure out, and it always deals with symbolism, and we deal with the Illuminati, and we deal with figures like Dante. I mean, there's just so much that goes in here dealing with Renaissance and art and symbols, and it's told in a way where you don't have to know anything about any of that. And you don't even have to have really a baseline interest in that per se, but just love a mystery presented in a different way. That's what I like about it, and I think Robert Langdon is a really great character. So this book was initially published in 2005, and it was one of the last ones that I haven't read yet. I wish he had more of them because I really do enjoy these books. They're unlike anything else. If you have found books that you feel you would compare to these, let me know so I can read them and check them out. And further review on the Ray Dunn travel cup. The lid keeps coming off, and I spilled coffee, and I'm very upset. Hey there, we're back. We're out of the car, and we're in front of the shelves. So we got some Christmas going on here because I do have some Christmas videos that I'm gonna be filming soon. So we compromised. You know, we're not a full-on Christmas before Thanksgiving house, but my husband agreed to do the lights so I could sit here and be a little festive. That I think that worked out well for me. Where did we leave off on our book wrap up though, guys? Angels and Demons was where we left off, and the next book I read was If It Makes You Happy by Claire Kahn. This book I believe originally came out in 2019, but I read the audiobook which recently came out this year. I got it from NetGalley in exchange for an honest review. And wow, this book has a lot of elements to it. It's about a girl named Winnie, and she spends summers working at her grandmother's diner called Goldeen's. And so I would listen to this book on my walk, and she reveals that she came up with the name Goldeen's because of her favorite Pokemon. And I was like, yes! Like then I was like, okay, Winnie, we have bonded on that alone. Winnie she's black. I would say, she doesn't use the term bisexual. She uses the term queer, and she also is overweight. So all three of these things come up in the book, and I really loved how weight was tackled in this book. If you have dealt with growing up overweight, it will either be triggering for you because it's so accurate, it may bring it up, or it will just feel, to me, I felt more just freeing hearing somebody talk about it the way Claire Kahn does in this book through Winnie. The those are a lot of elements going on, but also you're dealing with Winnie and her relationship with her grandmother, her relationship with her, she calls it her ungirlfriend. They're an item, but they don't believe in labels. Then she's starting to have feelings for another person. Then there's the relationship with her brother. So there's so much going on. Then Winnie becomes the town queen. I forget the term they use for it, but it's like essentially almost like a homecoming. And then there's a contest for like a Food Network show. So there's a lot going on, and I think it was almost a little too much because it kind of took away from other things, and it made me more eager to get through it and just finish it because I was so just being ping-ponged to so many places. But this was a great young adult book, and if any of the pieces I mentioned interest you, I would definitely check it out. The audiobook narrator did a great job of doing distinct voices for all of these characters, so a big thumbs up to her on that. That was terrific. After that, we read A Land of Never After, Curses of Never, #1 by R.L. Davenor. This says on the book, you know, it's a Peter Pan retelling, but I think that almost holds this book back. So you're following Wendy, who is an orphan, and Wendy meets Peter and gets taken into the woods, which becomes this Neverland. There is a Captain Hook character, and Captain Hook has siblings, and it's a lot of stuff that goes along with Captain Hook and his siblings and what each of them represents and where his rivalry with Peter stems from. But I felt like these characters, especially the Hook character and the twist with him, that they could have stood on their own without using the characters of Peter Pan. I really liked them, and I felt because they weren't living up to my idea of Peter Pan, it held the book back rather than propelled it forward. Especially the second half of the book is when you really get into where this story is going, which is very misaligned from any traditional Peter Pan story, and I think it just could have stood on its own. That being said, there are some interesting things about Peter in this book, like because in the musicals Peter is always a woman, so in that book there are implications of that as well, but Peter obviously identifies as a boy. So those are some little things that you'll find in this book as well. I did like it despite what I was saying about not liking it as a retelling, so to speak. So that's where I stand with that. You can read my full review of it on my Goodreads. I have it all there because I got that book from Nick Galley too, as well as the next book I'm going to talk about, which is The Moonlight Child by Karen Mcquestion. So all these books have come out recently, by the way. The Moonlight Child was a really exciting domestic thriller. It is about a woman named Sharon she kind of has, you know, the small house on the expensive block. Like her house, I think, was like the cottage on somebody else's, you know, big house back in the day, and now it's her own house. And she's in her backyard, and she notices in her neighbor's backyard that there is, through the window, she sees a little girl, and they don't have a little girl. This girl's doing dishes in the middle of the night, and then she sees her kind of get forcefully pulled away from the woman of the house and yelled at. And that piques her interest. It seems like something's wrong. She ends up taking on, as a favor to her daughter, her daughter works with foster children, and she takes on Nikki to live with her. Nikki is 19, so it's not a traditional foster situation, but they start living together, and Nikki gets involved in seeing what's going on at this house too. So you end up following Nikki, Sharon, as well as the household where the little girl is seen. And I really love it. I love what you would consider the more villainous character in this book. I found her to be just so fascinating and excellent. I enjoyed it a lot as an audiobook, but I think it would read just as thrilling in print format as well. So I would definitely recommend to my domestic thriller readers The Moonlight Child. What's next, Buster? What do we read next? Next we read The Summer House by James Patterson. You know, I have a physical copy of that book. I could be holding it up for you right now, which just feels so rewarding to me because a lot of the books I read are not print. I read a lot of ebooks and audiobooks. The Summer House is not just written by James Patterson. So let me just say that, you know, because credit needs to go where it's due. By James Patterson and Brendan Dubois. And it was good. It was good. It was, so I was talking with Lindsay B, who has a channel, about this, and I didn't like it as much as Women's Murder Club, but I liked it more than The Texas Ranger, so it's somewhere in the middle. And it's about a group of rangers who are accused of killing a home, a summer house full of civilians, and the army comes in to investigate this and see what they can uncover regarding this. Meanwhile, the town just wants to get these guys arrested. You go through a lot of different characters, all the army representatives. You kind of get inside their heads a bit, as well as the main guy in charge, Cook. And I thought it was fun. I thought it was good. It didn't take long to finish, so it was an easy read. I'm not gonna say it was like fun and light, because it's not, but it's not super heavy. You know, you're still dealing with horrible things, but it wasn't too intense. That's how I'll put that. But let's get to intense. The last book I read for this wrap-up was very intense, and this was another NetGalley audiobook called Lightning Down, a World War II story of survival by Tom Clavin. And he's retelling the story of Joseph Moser, who was a fighter pilot, and he had crashed and ended up being at Bukoval. I think I'm saying that right. And, you know, in a concentration camp, and it tells the story. It's not like a historical fiction, it's just the history, you know, because there is no fiction aspect of it. And what I mean by that, though, is that this isn't going to be an artistic read or something where, you know, there's beauty throughout the horrors. It is just horrors, but it's important to hear it, and it's important that their stories get heard and told. So if you are interested in World War II stories, especially in a more historical way, then definitely check out Lightning Down. But just know going into it that you know, it's heavy. It's heavy. It's heavy. And I think what was interesting here is getting the first-hand account of how, after the war broke, how people didn't believe them. They didn't believe it was as bad as it was, and so they kept quiet. And that's why it's so important to hear these stories now while they're being told. And that was my wrap-up. Guys, that was not it for my wrap-up. I'm coming to you really quick and beautiful. It is Editing Nina, because I forgot a book, and I love this book, and I don't want to forget it. So, because if I save it for the next one, it's going to be out of order. Anyway, the book is a memoir by Leonard Maltin. At first, you may be like, who's that? Then when you see his face, you're gonna know him, because I've seen him in all my Disney movie behind-the-scenes stuff. Leonard Maltin is a film critic, a film reviewer, all the film stuff, and he tells his story. And oh, my friend's mom just announced a baby on Facebook before they could. Okay, so anyway, moving on. I just got that text alert. He tells about, it's a story of passion more than anything, how he loved film since he was a young kid, and how he started a magazine as a high school student, maybe even junior high. And he tells stories of meeting celebrities and the ones he's met and the experiences he's had in film festivals. And it just shows how if you love something, you can make it part of your livelihood. So I definitely, if you love movies, film, actresses, actors, or just want a passion story, check out Starstruck by Leonard Maltin. That was my wrap-up. But, you know, I have right in front of me, I'll do this in my next, book haul. I'll show you them all. But one of the books I got at the library today for 50 cents, a Rocky Horror Show FAQ. Come on now. This is going to be fun to go through. But I'll eventually do a haul of all the recent books I have gotten. And thanks for coming along on my channel here, Wrestling with Books. I will be back soon. We've got some seasonal tags, that eventual haul, consistent reading wrap-ups, and whatever else may come about. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.